What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today I wanted to see how fast I could break Phastos, and turns out it's pretty fast. The goal of this deck is to reduce the 1-cost cards in your deck to 0-cost cards so you can draw them with Jane Foster. This game doesn't go super crazy, partially because of the kiln and the flooded location, and also the icebox meant that we could only play Phastos on turn 4. However, we are still able to put together a pretty powerful final turn that causes our opponent to retreat. But I didn't just want to play against a bunch of retreaters, so I headed over into Proving Grounds so that way I could show off this deck in its full glory. And at first, my opponent doesn't snap back here, and they play a Squirrel Girl, so I'm thinking it's just going to be one of those people that like retreats on turn 3 or 4 every game, trying to farm up the Season Pass XP. So I almost just left this match trying to get some content quickly for you guys, but I'm glad that I didn't, because this matchup wound up being super fun, and we also get to do the full combo here as best as we can. I'm going to battle for priority to try to mess with my opponent in this first game. That way they can't hang in and retreat for after winning all 3 locations. But I mean, they're winning all 3 locations right now. But regardless, we get to set up really nicely with not only the turn 3 Phastos, but the turn 4 Absorbing Man to re-trigger on all of those cards and just make sure all of the 1-cost cards in our deck are now costing 0, and then we've got the turn 5 Jane Foster to finish it off with. So this wound up being a really, really good game. The first game that I showcased at the start of this video was the first game that I played, and this was the second game that I played. So really, really fast, and hopefully that is illustrated with how quickly I am getting this content out. Gonna try to do this all with as few takes as possible here. And now we get to play Jane Foster. I could have also played the 0 this turn, just because I already drew the 0-cost 0. That's an additional incentive to draw 0. Jane should just draw 0 regardless, as just like a silly little Easter egg in the game. But regardless, here we get to draw a slew of 0-cost cards. I would have, I still do get to draw one more card off the top of my deck next turn because of the Grand Central. So it all works out here. I get to play my entire deck this game. So pretty sweet. We're going to lead off with Hit Monkey, which is the big, oh, my camera froze. Let me just take that off the screen. Like I said, I'm trying to do this in as few takes as possible here, but I get to dump my entire hand. Typically, we are zeroing either the Martyr or the Titania, or potentially the Blade. This game, we don't really have to do either of those things. My opponent does Killmonger, destroying my Ant-Man, but because I didn't have priority going into the final turn, it isn't going to hurt me that badly, and I'll still get full locations in 2 locations for the Dazzler. So I am still going to have a ton of power on the final turn. I don't think too much about where I play all of these cards. I'm just thinking, okay, we're just going to hit my opponent with a bunch of cards here. Shouldn't really matter. And yeah, like for the Raccoon and for all the points, you can see we beat my opponent in all 3 locations. Didn't think about it too much. I just figured, you know, we're probably going to get it done being able to dump my entire deck, because that was the entire deck. You play 12 cards in a Marvel Snap deck, and you get 12 slots on the field. So couldn't have played that any better. I mean, I could have, but wouldn't have made really any difference. And you know what? Now that I think about it, not playing the 0 last game increases the chances that Grand Central wouldn't have stolen Hit Monkey from us, which actually was a real risk, because then we wouldn't have gotten that much value out of the on reveal for Hit Monkey. So the 2 big payoff cards, got distracted by my camera going off there, but the 2 big payoff cards for this deck are Dazzler and Hit Monkey. There are other payoff cards that you can work with, but I wanted to play a full 7 1-cost cards, because that way you are, if you're discounting half of them with your first Phastos trigger, then you probably have 3 or 4 0-cost cards, which is about how much I wanted to draw with Jane, and then you just dump the rest of the cards by paying energy for them alongside Hitmonkey. You could also play Bishop in this deck, and you could play Blue Marvel, and there's probably some other payoff cards that I'm not thinking of as well. Martyr, you undo the drawback of that typically by filling all of your locations, and you typically I'll say like skirt the drawback of Titania by not having priority on the final turn and just playing it as your last card. We can see my opponent is actually playing a real deck here, but with both Killmonger and Lady Deathstrike, I do have to be careful, and I also don't draw the Phastos this game. So this is a little bit tricky, but I can still drop Hitmonkey plus a suite of 1-cost cards, and ultimately I'm gonna decide to drop them like this, and my opponent does have Death into Central Park. I'm just gonna totally ignore the sewer system. Little bit risky here, but I've got a bunch of points in Central Park, and I already had a little bit of a lead in K'un-Lun, so with the Rocket Raccoon and Titania, I am still able to get it done. This game, I just pass for a while. We've got the super flow, so I'm gonna have a little bit of extra energy. X-Mansion does not work out for me. That gives me Morbius, which I can pump up with Blade potentially. But yeah, Blade is also no real synergy with Blade in the deck. It's just a 1/3, and I felt like it was a strong 1-cost card. There is some synergy in that you can discard cards from your hand with Blade, so that way your hand is less clogged and you can draw more cards with Jane Foster, but that's not really what we're trying to do usually. In this game, again, no Phastos, and I'm gonna just continue to not battle, 1 because of the Superflow, and 2 because I don't want to have priority. We do have some really big 1-cost cards thanks to Wakandan Embassy in the form of Titania and Martyr, though Martyr is really tricky if you're not gonna like totally fill your locations, but we do draw the 0. So we should be okay with this 0 plus Martyr combo. And now we just have to figure out like what we want to do. If we don't play anything this turn, then we lose a card draw next turn. I thought briefly about playing Hitmonkey and then next turn using Absorbing Man to copy the Hitmonkey. I think it's probably just better to just play Absorbing Man for energy for 4 power. Won't win in Wakandan Embassy, and then on the final turn of the game, I'll be able to play Hitmonkey plus 4 1-cost cards. So here's what I decide to go with for that. Gonna play Hitmonkey plus the 0 over an X-Mansion, 0 out that Martyr, and then finish off with Ant-Man plus Titania. A bunch of power in Wakandan Embassy. Opponent probably not thinking that I can catch back up, and they're also thinking that Lady Deathstrike does take some power out of that Dazzler, and take some power away from the Morbius if I happen to Blade. Not gonna Blade in this one though, and then a surprising power dump over in Wakandan Embassy allows me to take it for another 2 cubes. This game, I've got the turn 3 Phastos, which is really good, and I was briefly nervous that I was going to have priority this game because my opponent had negative power with the hood. However, Carnage gives my opponent priority, which is making me feel pretty good here. I'm gonna slam Jane Foster into Shuri's Lab, and I will play the 0 before the Jane activates this time. A slight correction, and this actually goes so much better for me. This is like the craziest thing that I could have asked for here. My opponent plays a Gladiator with priority, which is going to give me an Absorbing Man, which hangs onto my Phastos, giving me another trigger, and then Jane will be able to draw my entire deck here. Just Absorbing Man is gone, so I only have 11 cards here. I'm going to 0 out that Martyr, even though the Martyr won't actually be able to move around, and then I will just Rocket Raccoon. I feel like they're going to play to Shuri's Lab since that's the location that I'm winning. So I play Rocket Raccoon into Shuri's Lab, and then I should have enough power to battle for both of those other 2 locations. Could have played Nico into Shuri's Lab as well, just because it was my biggest card that wasn't Hitmonkey. But I felt like they were definitely playing into Shuri's Lab, and if they weren't, then I was going to win that location regardless. So felt pretty confident about this sequencing of plays here. Hitmonkey gets to go absolutely crazy in this deck. It's a lot of fun. Let me know if you decide to play it yourself. But for today, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.